Hello. In this NHD Plus training session, I'll discuss the processing distribution units that come with NHD Plus version 2. The presentation will show how NHD Plus is organized and distributed by major drainage areas that consist of vector processing units, VPUs, and raster processing units. I'm Richard Moore, and I'm a member of the NHD Plus team. The object of this section is to help users understand how NHD Plus data is organized and distributed. We'll review some basic concepts that are covered in other NHD Plus sessions about how to obtain NHD Plus data and the directory naming structures, but doing so in the context of how these relate to processing and distribution units as we distribute them. Last, we'll explore the contents of the NHD Plus boundary shapefile and show how it can be used to explore the spatial distribution of these distribution units. Okay. We'll explain the various NHD Plus processing and distribution units. These units are hierarchical and spatially nested within each other, with the drainage area being the highest level of the distribution units. The three types of the units are drainage area, vector processing unit, better known as by its acronym as VPU, and the raster processing units, or RPUs. In addition, the NHD Plus directory structure will be discussed. The directories are organized by these various unit types, and file naming conventions of the data download packages and directory structure will be also covered. Lastly, the NHD Plus boundary unit shapefile will be introduced as a way to explore the geographic distribution of these units. NHD Plus is organized by major drainage area of the United States. This map shows the major drainage areas used to organize the NHD Plus data. You'll notice that there are codes, two-letter codes that identify the drainage area for each of these major drainage areas. Within each drainage area, NHD Plus data components are packaged by Vector Processing Unit, VPU, or Raster Processing Unit, described in the following slides. A drainage area is composed of one or more vector processing units, commonly referred to as a VPU. Drainage areas that comprise multiple VPUs include the Mississippi, the Colorado, and the South Atlantic regions. Others simply have one VPU in them. Vector data and attribute data tables are distributed at this VPU level. The NHD Plus catchment grid is also distributed as one file for each VPU. It's the only raster data set, however, that is distributed at the VPU level. This map shows the boundaries outlined in blue and the VPU IDs are in red letters. The colored areas on the map are the same major drainage areas of the distribution units we saw previously. And notice how some contain more than one VPU. The NHD Plus data are accessible from the NHDPlusV2 data download website. From the home page of the NHDPlusV2 website, the data download page is followed by clicking in the left frame in the illustration of the website on a particular VPU. The main data download page shows a map of all the VPUs across the nation. And so you can access any of these VPU regions just by selecting the VPU, clicking on it, or you can click on the name from below the map. This shows what the VPU download page looks like. It shows a list of multiple compressed 7-zip files. Data packages are distributed by VPU and also by RPU. They're listed here on this data download page. In this example, the VPU data components for VPU 07 in the Upper Mississippi are shown. You can use the distribution file name to determine which files are, or how the files are organized and distributed at this VPU level. You can determine this by going through the file names and parsing out the meaning of the 4 components of the VPU file names. The first part tells you which version of NHD Plus you're looking at. In this case, version 2.1. The second component of the key shows the major drainage area that you're part of. In this case, MS for the Mississippi drainage. The third element is the VPU ID, or in hydro region. It's, in this case, hydro region 7, or VPU 7, which is the Upper Mississippi. And the fourth element of the VPU file name provides the component name, which describes the theme of the data that the data package represents. A version number of the component is also embedded in this fourth element of the name, and represents whether or not there have been updates to that particular file component. Next are the Raster Processing Units, or RPU. These units are intended to hold the various NHD Plus Raster data sets available for a given VPU. The VPU is composed of 1 or more RPUs. Raster data for a VPU is divided by RPU areas and distributed at the RPU level. The list identifies the various raster data products distributed at the RPU level. These products include the HydroDem, the FDR and FAC grids, which are the flow direction and flow accumulation grids, the FDR null grid, which I'll describe in a later session, filled area grids, the NED snapshot, and the cat seed. As mentioned before, the NHD Plus catchment grid is the only grid or raster that's distributed at the VPU level. It's one whole file for the VPU and distributed at that level. This map builds on the previous maps of the major drainage areas and VPU distribution units. In this map, you see the VPUs of the major drainage areas are further subdivided into the RPU boundaries. The RPU boundaries are shown as the gray lines and the gray lettering that goes with it. So I'll zoom in on this Upper Mississippi next. Okay. The RPU for a given VPU can be accessed, the data can be accessed through the VPU data download page. The RPUs for the VPUs are shown and labeled on a map on the data download page. In this example, this example is the VPU map for the Upper Mississippi, VPU 07, and it has 3 separate RPUs in it, RPU 7A, 7B, and 7C. The RPU packages are listed on this VPU data download page for each VPU. You can use the distribution key name again to see how these are organized. And it's basically the same as before. There are four sections that, just like the rest of the VPU data. However, there is a fifth one. It's the RPU ID that we slide in here to show that which area is covered for that particular data set. A versioning scheme is also used to keep track of the NHD Plus updates to the data sets. There are several reasons why NHD Plus data sets may be updated. For example, the attribute data may have the attribute data may have ramifications if you've changed an attribute throughout the data set, such as the genus name. That could have ramifications throughout our whole NHD Plus data set. So a major edit there might require a refresh, but just to that particular data set, or just to the ones that are affected by that change. So fixes to the data set may be applied, and an entire VPU's data could be updated for this reason. Also, derived data such as flow estimates might also have to be updated and a new version released. Versions are tracked by using this version number, which is included in the 7-zip file name. And it's also included in a special tracking file that's included when you do a download. And the purpose of this file is to record the version number. Once you've downloaded, you're apt to delete the zip file and then forget what version it is. So this file keeps track of that. And there's also a special tool that's available, and we'll show that tomorrow, that goes to the FTP site of the NHD Plus download and checks for changes between what's on the website and what you've got on your machine. So this tool makes it very easy for you to keep track and keep up to date with the NHD Plus updates without having to download completely re-download the whole set. Now we're going to show you what it looks like after you've downloaded it and unzipped it. So that when the data are first downloaded and uncompressed for any given VPU, a drainage area workspace folder is created for which the VPU is part of. The example on the slide lists multiple drainage areas. There have been lots of downloads in workspaces, and the Mississippi MS is highlighted, and we'll concentrate on that and explore it. Okay, here we're looking at the different VPUs within the Mississippi drainage area. And it lists all the different ones that you've downloaded that are for that drainage area. Now we'll look at 07, which is the Upper Mississippi, and here we've downloaded just about everything for the Upper Mississippi, so there are lots of different files there or directories being shown. So aside from the NAD snapshot, all workspace names without an RPU ID contain data that are organized at the VPU level.
Can we stop right now and ask for a question? Yeah. Any questions about that? Everybody's with us? Okay.
Okay. Unless it has an RPU ID associated with it, these different levels are all at the VPU level, with exception of the NED snapshot. So the NED snapshot's the only one that's handled differently, and that's because it's an original ingredient data set that went into making the NHD Plus. Okay, another thing that you can download is the national data. And if you go to the data download website, you can click on this national data set, and that can be downloaded by clicking on that link. And okay, there it is. So the NHD Plus is all about rivers and waters and streams, and the flow is fundamental to that. So in the national data set, we have this group of data about the national set of stream gauges. It's got a shapefile of the location. It's got some information about that, and also mean annual flows at the gauges. Another thing in the national data set is the watershed boundary data set. The watershed boundary data set, also known as the WBD, it's the hierarchical set of watershed boundaries, and NHDPlus used these boundaries as part of delineating the catchments or making the catchments conform to the 12-digit HUC boundaries so that the catchments fit well into it. But we have the whole watershed boundary data set for the nation distributed in this format. We also have a national catchment grid available, which is the grid of all the catchments. To help explore the spatial distribution of the processing units, NHDPlus distributes a shapefile named the boundary unit, and that's you click on this global data set, and you can get to the boundary data set. Okay, the boundary unit shapefile contains polygon geometry for the VPUs and RPUs, and you can explore this and how it works. The RPU boundaries, when you bring it up, however, are not seen because these features spatially overlay, and they show, I guess, on top the VPU boundaries, so you can't see the RPU boundaries unless you select them. So this is how it looks. The boundary unit shapefile includes the overlapping VPU and RPU boundaries, but you can do a query. SQL expression you can apply to display certain VPUs or RPUs, and you can see how the underlying RPUs can be displayed. The top left example shows how to display all the VPUs boundaries within the Mississippi, for example. And the top right example can be used to display all the RPU units across the country. And finally, the last query shows you all the RPUs within VPU 17, or Hydro Region 17, the Pacific Northwest. And that's it for this particular session. Additional resources are available at the NHDPlus website, a documentation page where you can download and look at the user guide and the other documentation. Okay, that's it.